we can have in our society. It is a commitment that we have, and trying to deepen our impact and strengthen our methodology to expand our reach and empower communities with verified, reliable information. Our efforts in the incoming months and the year, this plan is to guide our efforts to innovate, collaborate, and lead with integrity. Whether you are a journalist, a researcher, an educator, or a policymaker, we, as concerned citizens of our country, invite you to walk this path with us, and also to be involved effectively and to take a collective responsibility towards fact-checking. Though this plan, we aim, is to deepen our engagement and also to be, as media practitioners or civil society members, policymakers, and also persons that are engaged in public discourse, to be as informed citizens of our nation, and to become as members or stakeholders in our national development and democratic participation. We extend our sincere gratitude to all stakeholders who have contributed to the development of this strategic plan. Your insight, collaboration, and belief in the power of truth have been very instrumental since the beginning and until now. As we embark on this new chapter, we reaffirm our dedication to serving the Gambia, its people, and beyond. With integrity, impartiality, and also professionalism, together we can build a future where the facts will prevail and the trust that we have will earn and prevail over any other thing. So, as I stand here today as the virtual person of InfoCheck, which is formerly Fact Check Center, I welcome you all, but I also thank you all for taking your auspicious time to be here and to attend this gathering. So thank you for being here to mark this important milestone in our development. Together, let's build a future where the truth will stand firm and the truth or the integrity that we have is going to be earned and deserved. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Council, for those really insightful remarks. I would now like to welcome the Executive Director of InfoCheck, Omar Sabo Kamara, to give his statement. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Imran. Members of the High Table, to the Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Information, Media and Broadcasting Services, Chairperson Gambia Access to Information Commission, consultant to this beautiful job, Mr. Aladi, our boss, and to Ms. Mariama Danso. I will always say the head, the owner, and the founder of Fact Check Center. Listening to you speak only make me recall the first day you start at the beautiful restaurant. Was the idea of fact check and what we want to do, how we want to do it, and how we doubted each other from the beginning. So it's beautiful to get to this journey with you together. Thank you for always standing by us and for always doing this job. It's a profound honor and gratitude to stand before you this morning as we observe this milestone of our collective journey, the official launching of InfoCheck, formerly known as Fact Check Center the Gambia, and unveiling the 5-year strategic plan 2026-2030. Today's event is not just a celebration of a rebrand. It is a celebration of a transformative growth, a renewal, and a shared focus. It is an affirmation of our collective commitment to truth, accountability, and democratic governance in an era where information is both the most powerful tool for progress and the most dangerous weapon when misused. When we began this journey in 2021 as Fact Check Center the Gambia, we started with little or nothing than a conviction, a small team of passionate young Gambians determined to change, to challenge disinformation, empower citizens, and promote a culture of evidence-based dialogue came together. We had no office, we had very limited resources, and in fact, no guarantee to succeed. But we had a focus, and for us that was the driving force. We believe that truth matters. We believe that citizens deserve access to accurate information. We believe that democracy cannot thrive where accountability and trust lacks. As a government expert, one thing I have learned and understood is that the most destructive nature of disinformation globally. When we talk about the profound challenges the globe faces, such as climate change, migration, sexual and gender-based violence, conflict, and health crisis, in between sit the prevalence of fake news as driving force for all of these problems, from gender disinformation to climate disinformation, and you name it. And the very reason why it is evident that both systematic and structural approaches to fight and tackle disinformation become a need and a necessity in a world divided by greed, disinformation, and misinformation. And this is the mission of InfoCheck. Since inception, we have trained over 600 young people across this country, both in the universities and schools. We have fact-checked and published over 100 fact-check stories, including vaccines, experience, and reports on hate speech, which have contributed to a more informed and responsible discourse in the Gambia. Our commitment to global collaboration has also been recognized through our membership at international networks, including African Fact Checkers Network, the UNESCO Global Media and Information Literacy Alliance, and the Climate Action Network for West and Central Africa. These achievements are a testament to what we accomplish when conviction meets collaboration, and when citizens and institutions unite around the belief for truth as a defining focus. At this juncture, allow me to acknowledge those who work tirelessly to support, make this day possible. First, to my dedicated staff and volunteers, your commitment and creativity have been displayed and built on InfoCheck. You have been the foundation upon which this institution continue to stand. To our newly appointed board members, thank you for taking up this noble role and to seek to guide our governance structures moving forward. To our partners, both previous and present, to the U.S. Embassy, the Gambia, who supported the development of our website that has strengthened our digital communication and capacity. To Center for Research and Policy Development, thank you for your collaboration and support, especially during our committee meeting. Africa Check for raising our professional standards and ensuring that our work aligns with international benchmarks. And to Civil Club Consulting, who led the participatory process of building your professionalism, research, and collaboration ensure that this document reflects not only our vision, but the voices of all those who believe in information integrity, rules, and right. Thank you. Finally, we extend our gratitude to our colleagues from the civil society, the media, and the academia who provide valuable insights during the consultation. This strategy is a collective achievement to build on a shared value of truth, accountability, and democratic participation. Our vision is clear. A Gambia where public discourse is shaped by truth and accountability, and where citizens actively participate in democratic processes. Our mission is to promote truth, peace, transparency, and accountability by combating disinformation, misinformation, and hate speech. We will do this by providing media and information literacy, and by advancing evidence-based fact advocacy and citizen engagement. This mission is rooted on a simple conviction. Truth is not a privilege, it is right. And defending the right requires courage, consistency, and tolerance. Our 5-year strategic plan is built on lessons from the past and the realities of the present. It is built around four interconnected pillars that define our work for the next 5 years. Fact-checking, as number one, remains core value of our mandate. We aim to strengthen our verification system, provide periodic fact checks and experience, and actively engage in predominantly addressing misleading narratives before they spread as an approach. Two, as we approach the 2026, 2027, and 2028 electoral cycle, our focus will be on protecting the integrity of elections by combating political disinformation and misinformation. We aim to invest in media and information literacy, recognizing that disinformation thrives where literacy is low. We aim to train 2,500 community leaders and young people, develop practical toolkits, and establish 10 regional media literacy networks across this country. Our aim is to empower citizens to discern truth from falsehood and to prevent misinformation before it takes root. The next area is capacity building and research. We have expanded InfoCheck to aim to transform into a knowledge-based hub, producing evidence-based research, building newsroom capacity for media houses, and advancing ethical journalism in the Gambia by 2027. We plan to secure membership of the International Fact Checkers Network, and by 2028 to train over 150 journalists and 30 radio stations nationwide combating disinformation and AI-driven deepfakes. In Thailand, we are also restructuring our management systems, building functional boards and editorial boards, strengthening our financial management policies, and ensuring that sustainability remains at the heart of our operations. Because a strong institution is the foundation of a long-term impact. We love this strategy in both opportunities and adversities. While the Gambia enjoy a greater openness than before, digital age has created an environment where this information spreads faster than facts. Political propaganda, online manipulation, and limited digital literacy continue to undermine trust in our institutions. Yet we see opportunity in our organization's creativity, in civil society's resilience, and the technology's potential to empower rather than to divide. Our task is to turn these opportunities into sustainable impact. InfoCheck will continue to stand for the truth even where it is uncovered, for accountability where it is inconvenient, and for transparency even when it is unpermanent. But this mission cannot be ours alone. It is a shared and collective responsibility that one demand collaborations among government institutions, development partners, media actors, and civil society. Together, we build a culture where accurate information is not just exception but the norm. As we reflect on this journey, I am reminded of the resilience of Gambian people, that our belief in justice and truth and our shared aspiration for the society inspired and rooted into this new chapter of InfoCheck era is a commitment to the vision. To our partners, we hope to strengthen collaboration and solicit your valuable support as we work through the realization of this strategic plan. To our fellow citizens, thank you for the trust you ever have since our inception. Moving forward, we may always remember that accurate information is power to hold leaders accountable. Power in making informed choices, and the power to build a just, democratic, and inclusive society we all deserve. Thank you all for your kind attention. Congratulations.
Thank you, Omar. There is a book, and those who know me know I always start these conversations with there's a book, and I'm sure they will, there he goes again. But there is a book that was written by Henry Kissinger and a couple of other authors, The Age of AI in Sport. And he talks about, or they talk about how over years or throughout history, human beings have been the only ones that could exercise decision making in terms of how we live and how we engage with each other. And now we've come to an age where we've created machines that are also now given powers or have the powers to actually come up with ideas almost on their own, just inspired by ideas perhaps that we created long ago. And this has created a new frontier that's exciting but also dangerous. And if you listen to Omar's speech, of course, he talks about the challenges that we face in terms of what disinformation and misinformation can create, including, in areas such as gender, in areas such as climate change, which are critical. And so he's also outlined to you the plan that InfoCheck has in terms of moving forward in challenging some of these difficult issues that we have to deal with as humanity moving forward and as a country moving forward. And it reminds me of this Loki. Some of you watch the Marvel movies, who always goes around talking about he has a glorious purpose. And if you know Omar, of course, he's always inspired to do something, to contribute, to have a purpose, to advance our country, but also to advance, positive, to make a positive contributions. And so I hope you will support this initiative by InfoCheck to continue to make good impact in this area of fact-checking. I would like to now invite Ms. Kodo El Java, who is who's the Permanent Secretary for the Minister of Information and representing the Minister of Information today. Ms. Java, you are.
Thank you very much. Master of Ceremony, Mr. Imran Daba, Ms. Maria Madanso, the chairperson of the Board of InfoCheck, Mr. Okara, Executive Director of InfoCheck, Nene Magenge, Chairperson of the Information Commission, distinguished guests, members of the media and civil society. It is my great honor to deliver this statement on behalf of the Honorable Minister of Information, Media and Broadcasting Services, who conveys his warmest greetings and heartfelt congratulations to InfoCheck on rebranding and for the successful launch of its 2026-2030 strategic plan. Today's event marks a significant milestone, not only in the evolution of InfoCheck, but also in our shared national commitment to strengthening information integrity, media accountability, and citizen empowerment in the Gambia. The transformation of the Fact Check Center to InfoCheck represents a bold reaffirmation of purpose and a determination to adapt to the changing information ecosystem while remaining rooted in the principles of accuracy, transparency, and truth. The Ministry of Information, Media and Broadcasting Services commends InfoCheck for its steadfast contribution to promoting access to credible information, combating misinformation, and building public trust in the media. These efforts complement the government's broader vision to create a free, responsible, and resilient media environment that supports informed public participation, digital literacy, and democratic governance. As we navigate an era of rapid technological change, the fight against misinformation and disinformation must remain collective. The ministry will continue to work with partners like InfoCheck and the media fraternity to strengthen institutional collaboration, promote media literacy, and enhance the quality and integrity of public communication. On behalf of the Honorable Minister, I wish to extend best wishes to the board, management, and staff of InfoCheck as we embark on the implementation of your new strategic plan. May this new chapter bring continued success, innovation, and impact in promoting truth and accountability in the Gambia's information ecosystem. I thank you all for listening.
Thank you, Ms. Java. And we would like to extend our thanks also to the ministry. Of course, again, this is a course that requires collaboration, both civil society, but also government. And we thank you for that. Without further ado, I'll move on to the keynote speech that will be delivered by the chairperson of the Access to Information Commission, Ms. Nene McDowell Gay, who I think we all recognize and know as one of the most prominent media personnel in terms of media information in this country. Ms. Otto, welcome.
Thank you very much, Chairperson for the occasion, Mr. Imran Jago. Listen to the Executive Secretary, Mr. Omar Sayo Kamara, talk about the starting of this InfoCheck organization. Not only thank them, praise them, and congratulate them. And having started with nothing and with some doubt, and here you are today, a very effective institution, a very prominent institution, an institution that is so needed in this day and age of misinformation and disinformation. Madam Chairperson of the Board of Directors, Ms. Maria Danso, and other board members, if they're present. The Permanent Secretary representing the Honorable Minister of Information, Media and Broadcasting Services, Mrs. Kodu Jaban. The Executive Director, Mr. Omar Kamara. The Lead Consultant, Mr. Alaji S. Nyang. I would also like to recognize the presence of Mr. Adi Jabate of the Francis Small Center for Rights and Justice. I would also like to recognize the presence of Mr. Mustafa Kidabo of the Republic, and verified as well. And I want to recognize all journalists present here today, civil society members, ladies and gentlemen. It is indeed a great honor and privilege to deliver this keynote address at the official launch of the 2026-2030 strategic plan and the unveiling of a renewed institutional identity, InfoCheck. Allow me first to congratulate the leadership and entire team of InfoCheck for their vision, determination, and steadfast commitment to truth, accuracy, and transparency in public communication. This milestone represents not just a change of name, but a bold reaffirmation of purpose, a statement that in a world awash with disinformation and half-truths, facts still matter. The right to access information is a cornerstone of democracy. This is not a privilege, it is a right of every citizen. The enactment of the Access to Information Act 2021 gave life to this constitutional promise. It established the Information Commission, which I have the honor to chair, to ensure that the right to information is effectively realized. It's a bold step, it's a beginning, it's not easy. It is new in our culture, a culture of secrecy, a culture of silence. And so together we need to work together to definitely break that blockage that has existed for a long time. And I always say it's a bold step that the government has taken, and we see that as a political will. So we all have to work together to make this a reality, access to information and the right information. This legislation, the first of its kind in Gambia, empowers citizens to seek, receive, and use information held by public institutions. It also compels those institutions to disclose information proactively and transparently. Access to information, therefore, is not simply about documents or data, it is about empowerment. It is about giving citizens the tools to make informed decisions, participate meaningfully in governance, and hold those in authority accountable. The Information Commission recognizes that access to information and fact-checking are two sides of the same coin. While the ATI Act empowers citizens to seek and receive information from public institutions, fact checkers ensure that what circulates in the public space is accurate and verifiable. We therefore view your work as a critical extension of the broader information rights ecosystem, complementing our efforts to promote transparency, strengthen governance, and build public trust. Ladies and gentlemen, information is the oxygen of democracy, as we all know in this room, because you have civil society actors, you have journalists and government officials, and we know that it is the oxygen for democracy. When it is polluted, our governance suffers. When it is withheld, our accountability weakens. And when it is distorted, our citizens are misled. In this era of information abundance, we face a paradox. The more information we have, the harder it sometimes becomes to find the truth. False narratives, manipulated content, and deliberate misinformation now travel faster than verified facts. That is why institutions like InfoCheck are vital. They serve as the sentinels of truth, verifying claims, debunking falsehoods, and promoting fact-based public discourse. Their work complements the Information Commission's mission of promoting openness, transparency, and responsible information governance. This new strategic plan and identity also come at a critical juncture in our national journey. The Independent Electoral Commission, IEC, has recently released the electoral calendar for 2026 and 2027, with the presidential elections scheduled for 2026, followed by the National Assembly and local government elections in 2027. These upcoming elections will test not only our political maturity, but also our information ecosystem. In the months ahead, Gambians will rely heavily on the information they get from the media, from political actors, and from digital platforms to make choices that shape the nation's destiny. It is therefore imperative that this information be accurate, undiluted, and responsibly shared. The spread of falsehoods, hate speech, and manipulated content can erode trust, incite division, and weaken democracy. We cannot allow them to happen in a small country like the Gambia, not even in a big country, but of course in a country that we're all related one way or the other. As we approach the elections, the call for verified information becomes not just a professional obligation, but a patriotic duty. InfoCheck, the Information Commission, the media, civil society, and all stakeholders must work hand in glove, to ensure that the truth remains the loudest voice in the public space. The role of technology and artificial intelligence, of course, is present today. We must also recognize that the digital landscape is changing faster than ever before. The use of artificial intelligence, AI, and sophisticated digital tools has transformed how information is produced, shared, and consumed. AI can be a force for good, helping to automate verification, detect misinformation, and expand access to knowledge. But it can also be a double-edged sword, capable of generating deep fakes, distorting facts, and amplifying harmful narratives. This is why we should all be committed to promoting digital literacy, ethical technology use, and policy frameworks that safeguard truth and integrity in the age of AI. And I was very happy to hear Mr. Kamara talk about their plans to continue to enlighten and educate the media fraternity. That is very highly welcome. We must ensure that innovation strengthens, not undermines the public's right to accuracy. Ladies and gentlemen, the protection of truth is a collective responsibility. No single institution can do it alone. Governments must remain transparent, media must remain ethical, citizens must remain vigilant, and institutions like it must remain independent and fearless in the pursuit of accuracy. Let us remember that information integrity protects us from the infection of lies, manipulation, and the corrosion of truth. As we unveil this strategic plan and identity today, let us recommit ourselves to building a Gambia where information empowers rather than divides, where facts illuminate rather than confuse, and where truth remains the foundation of governance. As we look forward to 2030, may InfoCheck continue to stand as a beacon of reliability and integrity, helping to nurture a culture of openness, strengthen our democracy, and inspire a new generation of informed citizens. The work ahead is immense, but so is your resolve. Together, through partnership, vigilance, and truth, we can ensure that the promise of access to information becomes a lived reality for every Gambian. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Ms. Matolde. I think if we would remember anything from that brilliant statement, it would be that information is the oxygen of democracy. And if it is distorted through misinformation or polluted through disinformation, then it will choke society, it will disorient, it will disrupt. And I think that is something that is important to remember. And also the fact that it's an obligation on all of us, as individual institutions cannot fight this fight alone, given the speed with which misinformation and disinformation spreads in this day and age. And we need to remember that, and we need to lend our support to institutions like InfoCheck to be able to achieve what we want to achieve as a country together. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes the introductory remarks for the occasion. We would want to now jump into the main official launch of the event. But I will do now something that I like doing, which is literally flip the script, right? We would want to first start with the presentation of the 2026-2030 strategic plan instead of unveiling of the
Hi, good morning, everybody. My name is Alajesman. From Central Consulting. Central is a consultancy firm that focuses mostly on supporting civil society organizations in terms of strategy development, capacity building, and capacity building, ground right advocacy, and training. So that's what we do, and that's one of the reasons why Market Center Gambia engages in the branding of the organization and the development of I'll give it a start. When we started the development of the strategy, we had conducted a lot of conversations, focusing on civil society on the legal landscape, and that was what necessitated the change of name of Market Center Gambia. The reason being, there is fact check center in Gambia and there is fact check in Gambia. We thought during the consultation, we have conversation with people, when the people are going to mix in the organization. So we advised fact check center in Gambia to look into change in the name to ensure that it is identifiable, but also unique place in the Gambia when we deliver what it does. So that's the reason why we changed from Fact Check Center the Gambia into to make it so. And in terms of developing the strategy, like these are just some of the methodologies we use. We use key informant interview. Some of the people in the interview are here in the room. Thank you for providing us that final information that has been given on the strategies. Conducted to focus group discussion, do some text review, and then conducted a review and evaluation of the strategy. What's the vision of InfoCheck? A Gambia where public discourse is shaped by truth and accountability, and citizens actively participate in democratic processes. And how do we get there? The mission. To promote truth, transparency, and accountability by combating misinformation, disinformation, and hate speech, providing media literacy programs, and holding account all action through fact-based reporting and advocacy. What is our theory of change? What do we consider to do, and what are the variables that will lead to our desired outcome? If citizens are educated to understand mis or disinformation and are provided with the proper tools to discern misinformation, and if citizens are trained to understand how to hold to account, then information provided by state and non-state actors could be factored by citizens to hold such actors to account. What are the key strategic directions of Fact Check Center in Gambia? We have Fact Check is the core, media and information literacy, capacity building and research. So, in doing that, we have 3 strategic goals. And strategy goal 1 is to improve the circulation of relevant and accurate information to the public and to hold duty bearers accountable in providing public information. So each of the strategic goals are divided into specific objectives and activities that we need to be achieved on the goal. Then strategic objective 2 is that citizens have improved understanding of media information and my font size is very small, so that they can discern this information. Hold on. Let me read it from this. Okay, for media and information to improve. This one's also very small. My eyes are something. So yeah, if you have the strategy, you can do it. Somehow I think this one size too small to realize it. And then the capacity building and research, we set the position InfoCheck as a leading knowledge and fact-checking center in the Gambia, enhancing content quality and strengthening media capacity to efficiently counter misinformation. Now, to do all this work, there are implications on the strategy has implications on the organization. And in trying to make sure that the organization is positioned to be able to implement the strategy, we decided that we need to make sure that we come with organizational priorities. And priority number 1 was the rebranding and the restructure. So we need to restructure the management and rebrand the organization from Fact Check to InfoCheck. And then organizational priority 2 is efficient financial management systems. To raise funds, you must also first demonstrate that you can manage funds. And to be able to help project to be sustainable, you need to work on their management system. And that's organizational priority 2. Organizational priority 3 is a functional and strong advisory and editorial board. It is also important to ensure that there is oversight on fact check management. And we established a very strong board of 5 and an editorial board of 3 to ensure that they are able to help the management in the delivery of its mandate. Then organizational priority 4 is sustainability and financial stability. We all know how, for example, funding in international development can be very unpredictable. We've seen, for example, just when Trump was elected, a lot of international organizations have closed in the Gambia. Of course, I was a Freedom House, when that clause had created this civic club. But that tells you that civil society organizations need to work on how they respond and how that funding is sourced not only from donors and international development partners, but from local sources, such that when those development partners no longer have a priority of funding civil society organizations, then organizations can fund themselves. So if you look at, for example, the Sustainability and Financial Stability Plan, it talks about how FactCheck can sustain itself by trying to raise funding locally, but also through the services that they provide. Now, in doing that, we needed to make sure that we created an organogram that will ensure that there is efficient delivery of services. So we have the advisory board, which is the oversight institute and the highest decision-making body of the organization. Then we have the executive director and the editorial board. The editorial board will be supporting the managing editor and his team to be able to make sure that fact-check explainers of facts that they produce are of quality and high standard. And then you have then the admin and grants officers and then the program and advocacy coordinators. Then you have also the research. So part of also one of the things that we talk about financial sustainability is also to turn the organization into a knowledge production center in which they engage in research. And that part of that would also be in a form of consultancy to produce funding for the organization independently. Thank you. In short, that's what the strategy is. You have all the detailed information in the document that Omar and his team will continue to share. Thank you so much.
If we have the lights, please. I have the same problem Alaji has with the eyesight thing, right? Awesome. Right. Thank you. Thank you, Sir Alaji, for a very brief but first presentation, which is also a lot of clarity in terms of the direction and the priorities of the organization. Now that you've mentioned, the rebranding of the organization, I would like to welcome Mr. Mohamed Lamin Touré to unveil the new InfoCheck brand identity.
Lights. Good morning, everyone. My name is Mohamed Lamin Touré. I will be giving you all the brand unveiling, which is the brand identity that we have from FactCheck Center now to InfoCheck. Yes. But first of all, before starting, I will start with this quote by Socrates, where he said, an unexamined life is not one. But today in our generation, and our time, that quote applies with an unexamined information is not what we do. So let me. So imagine you wake up today early in the morning, around 7 a.m. scrolling around on social media, specifically Facebook and Twitter. You came across these two posts. One of them is from Watson Gap. And we all know that Watson Gap is the biggest platform when it comes to sharing news about what's happening in the country. And other has a tweet from our president saying that our young people are stepping up. The work of InfoCheck shows that that the next generation is ready to champion honesty, clarity, and informed dialogue. Keep shedding light where there is confusion. Your leadership matters. So imagine, so some of you have already got to do your Twitter to check this post if it's real. This is fake. Both of them are fake. They are not real. So, yes, why this matters? Those information, the information that I just showed you guys not long ago, if someone picked it up right now from this room and took a picture of it, shared it via WhatsApp, before we will know, the news will have gone to a radio station. And from the radio station, it will spread to our local communities. Now information travels faster than ever. If, like before, in the time of our ancestors and now, it's completely different. Because during those days, you will see, they will fight for information, and information was only accessible to the elites and the powerful within society. But now information is accessible to everybody. But with this access comes with a grade of responsibility. Over the years, this has been our pillar that we have been operating on. Fact-checking, conducting media literacy, as well as partnership with media houses, and as well as advocacy to promote transparency, accountability, and digital. As highlighted by our executive director, over the years we have trained more than 600 citizens. So 600 citizens here means that from student journalists to radio journalists, as well as both tertiary and primary level education students on how to detect and counter both mis and disinformation. Our work has spread across time. From 2021, when we were first established, to 2025, we have trained 600 people as well as published more than 100 fact checks. So over the years, this has and citizens actively participate in democratic processes. And our mission is to promote truth, transparency, accountability, and combating misinformation, disinformation, and hate speech. Providing media literacy programs and holding public institutions accountable through fact-based reporting and advocacy. So I would like to thank you all for being part of this brand unveiling. Thank you.
Thank you very much once again. Gentlemen, we move again to another piece. This is a final discussion. Again, on the topic of fact-checking and its relevance for the Gambia. I would like to invite the panelists. Mr. Demakande, if he's around.
Yes.
I'd also like to invite Mr. Mustafa Kedao and Ms. Annette Kamara join me on the panel. Thank you. Thank you. I'll start again by saying there is another book, right? Yes, there is another book. It's called Nexus. It's written by Yuval Noah Harari. And in it he talks about humanity, but basically looking forward, where we are headed. And in it he makes arguments about information. He says that societies, for human beings, form societies because of common beliefs. And so his argument is that the gel that holds the largest groups of people together is through information, right? And so information becomes a critical component of our social engagement, religious engagement. You have religions that people believe in, is shared information, and because of that shared information, we build connections with people we've never seen, we've never heard. We can meet a Muslim man today from Bangladesh or Saudi Arabia or from the jungles of South America, and we immediately feel a kinship with them. We will form, friendships with them because we have a common identity, and that is only facilitated through information, right? Look at history, you find that every time information is managed well, it brings people together, but if mismanaged, it creates problems for a society. And so I want to start, this conversation, looking at that and looking at our current state. I've already mentioned earlier the current state of the world in terms of how information is liberalized, is easily accessible, is the amount of information that we produce now is unprecedented. And I will start the conversation by asking, and I will start with Mr. Kande here. Why then is fact-checking a critical issue to deal with in this day and age, considering the status quo?
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. I will kind of bring it back home. In 2017, before Java left, we had over 24 websites and apps that were blocked in the Gambia. Even a simple WhatsApp call was hard, and you can't do without a VPN. Those of you are familiar with it, who were around in the Gambia at the time, you remember this very well. About 8 to 9 years later, today I don't know how many radio stations, online platforms, or media outlets that we have in the Gambia. It's so many. Back in the days I could count. There was only only one TV channel in the Gambia. So if you look at it in that context, there is information everywhere, information proliferation. So the issue of therefore is not where do we get information, but where do we get quality information. So I'll give you maybe an analogy that will give you a little bit more context. Imagine there are 2 wells. I come from the village. I grew up fetching water from a well. So I'll use that as an example. 2 wells in 2 separate villages. In one well, it's covered, access is very limited. It's available to everybody, and there's some form of sense of responsibility who gets what, the water is clean and everything. But in village B, it's a very quote-unquote prosperous village with a lot of wells. Everybody has, every compound or household has a well. Unfortunately, there are a lot of jolas in that village. So some of them would want to add salt to their water. Some of them would want to leave their wells open. Some of them would want to even add things that are otherwise harmful to the others. But they will promote information that so and so's well is not very clean, or it's not tasty, or smells bad. Now, these 2 contrasts, or these 2 villages, or these 2 scenarios, contrast with what we faced with before 2017, and basically what we face in this day and age. On the one hand, we have less information. We are a very small group of journalists, very tenacious, dare I say, very talented. But in the 21st century, in this 2050, year 2025, we have so many journalists, so many platforms, so much information. Sometimes that creates a sense of misinformation, sense of overwhelm sometimes. And as a result, that's why organizations such as InfoChat, fact-checking organizations become very, very important in that sense. So, because the citizens, most of us are yearning to trade. We're no longer in an era where there's only one way we go and do it from that trusted source. But there are so many sources, some of them good, some of them bad. So we need to rely on the third party, or we need to rely on some other people, especially the vulnerable groups in society need to rely on some third party who can provide you with accurate information on which we have the best, affordable, and suitable water to drink. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And I would now move to Mustafa. You've been involved in a lot of work in terms of fact-checking issues and providing information to the public. And I know for a fact that there has been challenges with that in terms of fact-checking issues or providing accurate information is one thing. Getting the public to really engage with that information can be another challenge. How do we fact-check in a way that can enable society to really be able to identify where they can go to verify information or get used to fact-checking organizations where they can verify information?
All right. Thank you so much, and good morning, everyone. It's morning. So I mean, we do both fact checking and investigative journalism, and I would say the easiest way to have citizens access to critical information, relevant information, and accurate information would be to utilize various tools that are available now. Because one of the things that we realized is that there are a lot of people who don't like reading text, so they don't go to websites, they don't like doing that. There are some people who would rather have things in audio, fact-checking content on audio. So if you are involved in fact-checking right now, information verification, and make sure you want to ensure that you reach a larger audience and in a way that's more efficient, you will have to use all the various tools that are available. Some they do very simple leaflets or flyers to ensure that the objects are simplified in a very summarized way. Some they use a simple WhatsApp audio that you can forward to as many WhatsApp groups as possible. Some they use videos with a little bit of infographics and to explain the inaccuracy in the information that's being going about or being shared. So that, I guess, is the most critical, most easier way to share fact-checking content. I mean, particularly from our side when we do investigation, because fact-checking is also part of the investigative process, because it's the last part of it. We call it quality control. But most of the time, our content is very long. It's a long form writing, and so, there are other people who are also relying on that content to use it in their own platforms, like now on TikTok and on other platforms that some of us are not able to utilize. I guess that's the easier way to proceed.
Thank you. And then we shift to Ms. Hyde. One of the things perhaps that may also pose challenges for fact-checking organizations is the risk of being accused of exactly what they themselves try to manage, which is, for example, accusing that perhaps they are biased right? Especially in the kind of social media space that we see nowadays, where we put each other in boxes, he's this, he's that, right? How does a fact-checking organization then navigate that environment of trying to be objective but not also be trying to avoid to be seen as biased or, that sort of thing?
Thank you very much and good morning to everybody. I'm not sure there's bias in fact-checking. Is there any, Mustafa, as the expert?
I don't think so.
I don't think so, Imran. I'm not sure there's bias in fact-check. So basically what fact-check does is provides platform for accountability and transparency, and it's been verified to ensure that whatever has been consumed is authentic, basically.
So the point I'm making is, that is one thing, that you are doing authentic work and you know you've done authentic work. But again, because of the environment, you still sometimes avoid being accused of, having an agenda for the kind of information. Oh, he fact-checked this person, he didn't fact-check that person. How do you manage that?
I would say it's like we always say in journalism, give equal opportunity to all parties involved, right? And at some instance or at some point, you cannot avoid fact-checking one particular institution or one particular individual because they're notorious for spreading mis or disinformation or false information. So if that is the case, I'm not sure there is a way to avoid always fact-checking, let's say, who do I use that as an example? Let's say always fact-checking Denver. I mean, because we know Denver will always wake up and do Maginova stories. So you would always have to fact-check Denver. And looking ahead of the 2026 electoral cycle, these issues would not be avoided. I mean, once you are in the media and you report authoritatively and balanced and accurately, you would be blamed of being biased, like it or not. So professionally, if you ask me how do you avoid that, I'll tell you it's by the media house that is notorious for doing that, avoid doing that. I mean, because if you are prone for that, you would always be handpicked. So I take a typical example where we've seen the NPP social media handle and the UDP social media handle. And there's a couple of other individuals that are known for using AI tools to, I think the recent one I've used is the photo of Nene and MC Chan that was trending. And I've used another video we've seen some 2 weeks ago. It's from the same platform, technically from the same individual. I mean, that person would rant and blame you for being biased because you fact-checked him or her 3 times within a week. But then, that is what your role is. So there is no way when you're in the media you avoid blames. It's a Gambian thing, it's a Gambian phenomenon. When you talk about UDP, NPP supporters rally behind you. When you talk about NPP, UDP supporters rally behind you. When you talk about independent candidate that is not in line with UDP, they support you. So, I'm not sure that, from experience, there is no way you can avoid being criticized or being accused of being biased in the Gambian media landscape.
I can add one more. The fact-checking is done in such a way that a third party can also verify for themselves. So for example, if you fact-check party, the evidence that you use, the links that you use, the documents that you use, they are all linked to this. It's a story. So you link all news stories, you publish the documents. So there is this thing called fact-checking the fact-check. So the third party should be able to verify. If the third party cannot verify, then that's not a fact-check.
Absolutely.
I think the other thing I wanted to add is that in addition to the principle of being transparent about all the steps and process, we're also setting up a standard. Fact-checking has a methodology as a guide. So fact-checking organizations will put up their methodology and publish them on their website. Say this is what we're fact-checking, right? We're fact-checking news items or events that have reached this level of shares online, or we're following this particular media house and we're fact-checking them for A, B, or C reasons, and so on. So it's about being transparent as well. Beyond that is also being independent. You know, not just from where we sit down. There's so much disinformation, there's so much misinformation. So you can't fact check everything. So you have to make it deliberate choice to say, this is what I'm going to fact check, I'm not going to fact check that. At the end of the day, you also need to do a backlog, like a log of fact check you're doing and see. If I'm fact checking UDP more than NPP, and they're both producing the same number of issues that's the fact check, then I should look inward and say, am I independent? Or vice versa. And these are very, very important issues because at the end of the day, this is at the core of the public trusting in the work that we do. And as fact-checking organization, we can do our public trust in the work we do. Beyond that is also being, careful not to be carried along with, the principle of I want to be the first fact-check, I want to be the first publish, and so on. We are not. Fact-checking is not activism. Fact-checking is very separate from that. So that needs to be there as well. So what we do our work. There are principles, there are standards, there are guides that we need to put forward and making sure that our work is very, very much about. So work ethics and travel integrity.
Do another round of questions and then I'll allow the floor also to raise questions or make comments if they want to. But I'll start this time from Alex. During the beginning of the rainy season, I was somewhere and heard someone talking about the fact that the rains were not coming. And the reason is that we sin too much, right? And this you find also even on the media platforms. That sometimes you find somebody, oh, we must repent as a people, otherwise God is angry with us. When it goes to other things that Saibu mentioned about gender issues, about a whole lot of other issues that we face. How does fact-checking help in this regard? Because sometimes I think also when we talk about it, for example, a phrase like fact-checking, the mindset goes to political issues or these other elements, but not towards issues like climate change or gender. So how does fact-checking help in that regard?
So fact-checking is very fundamental because it helps with demystifying the myth we have in this country. We have a lot of myth going on in terms of gender, in terms of environment, and in terms of climate change. And part of the things fact-check can always do is to ensure that there are certain information about climate change that are verified and is accessible to the public, where they understand that this is a climate change issue and there are causes and reasons and factors attached to it, and then comes links and proofs as to how we get to demystify all these things we have in our mind. And it's the same with gender. I mean, numbers don't lie. Data doesn't lie. Research and studies are proofs and evidence that these things have nothing to do with maybe, like you said, the number of sins we have committed. That is why we have not had rain. I mean, if that is the case, we would not have rain in October 22nd or 24th. So I think these are some of the little things that fact-checking comes in place. It's fact-check the politicians, the public figures, or the social media influencers or individuals, but it could actually look into social issues that are affecting community and society, where it changes the perspective of the public, and this is where it is very fundamental, especially in the issue of gender in this country.
I think, I was going to say that sometimes the issue of these issues are also about, so fact-checking, we have three major outputs as an organization. We can produce a fact check, we can produce an explainer, or we can produce a fact sheet. For a fact check, there has to be a conclusion whether to say what you're fact checking, is it true, false, misleading, or you don't have any information. That's number one out. It's not everything that you can fact check. You can't fact check opinions. If Button comes out today and says, I'm the best president this country has ever had, that's his opinion. You can't fact check that. What you can do an explainer, or you can do a fact sheet on the Janet, on the Barrow, on the Jawara, what has happened, in terms of projects, in terms of agriculture, and so on and so forth. You allow the people to make that, but a fact check wouldn't be an idea to do it. So it's a similar thing in terms of a lot of opinion issues, a lot of stereotypes and problems. For fact check is a question of a statement of fact, whether it's false or not false, or whether there's evidence to support direction, one way or the other, a decision in that direction.
So this is the reason why I asked the previous question, because if the public doesn't understand what that difference is, they see Barrow says I'm the best president and you didn't say anything about that, they'll say you didn't fact check, right? Which means they need to understand these principles that go along with fact checking for them to understand why you didn't speak on this and why you spoke on that. So that was the exact reason why I raised this thing. But again, now I come to a question that might again seem, cliche maybe, because it's probably self-evident in a lot of our minds. But to give an example, when I went to law school, the first day we went, our lecturer, chairman, asked us what is a company. And we realized as lawyers, we couldn't really define what a company was. So in our heads, we understood what a company was, but we couldn't articulate it in the way we were supposed to. So we talk about fact-checking as supporting, promoting democratic accountability. But how does it do that? It's a question I think we take for granted that everybody understands, but perhaps it's something you can maybe talk a bit about.
Well, I think that we underestimate often the critical nature of information in how society operates. So information is the engine of the society, right? If you stumble here today and you fall, tomorrow if you reach here, you're going to look back. Why? Because it's coded in you that there is a storm here, right? So information is basically what makes you who you are. Information is what makes God God, because he has access to every information, right? And who controls what information you consume controls both your behavior and your thinking and your environment. And so that is why fact-checking is critical, because unless you have access to relevant information, the government participation in a democracy becomes a facade, because that's the reason why they will connect, Americans will connect Russian disinformation campaign to election rigging, because for people to be able to vote, they need to have critical and relevant information. And if I make a decision based on the wrong information, then I can come and argue that I made a wrong decision because I was misled into making that decision. And so that is why it's critical that people just don't have information that they have relevant information. Otherwise, democracy is a facade. Because democracy is the government of the people for the done by the people. So it cannot be, people cannot participate in that process unless they have information that is very accurate information that will help their participation in the process. I think that's what makes fact-checking very critical. Not just fact-checking, but also investigating them. Very critical.
And that will bring me to my last question, and that goes to Zema. The fact that, of course, we have access to information act, we have access to information commission, but often I go to engagements and I hear journalists and organizations complain about the ability to get information. Even the National Human Rights Commission, talk about when they try to do the monitoring of the implementation of the trans report, that they find it difficult to get information from certain institutions. And so how does that then play out in this with InfoCheck and other organizations that are about fact-checking and about providing people with reliable information, but having to deal with that environment?
That's a very, very fundamental question. And, we are 10 years, almost 10 years since Germany, but the attitudes in public offices, I don't think it has changed a lot. A lot of people still think that it's the same Gambia we had, that we're dealing with on the Germany, is the same Gambia that we have. A lot has changed in terms of the laws. maybe not where we want it to be, but there's significant changes. The Access to Information Act is revolutionary. I mean, you know, it's not the best in the world, I have to say. It's not the best in Africa, but it's huge in terms of where we're coming from. And again, I know that's a very low bar to compare, but we have to compare from. So it's huge progress. Before the Access to Information law, even sharing, like documents from an office without an authorization from the right person in an office, you could be prosecuted for that on the Gambian law. That's how bad it was. But with the Access to Information law, it's the reverse, so to speak. Even if you are not allowed to share information, for instance, if this information under the Access to Information law, you're not allowed to share it, but you have tried to flag that this is wrongdoing by a public official, for instance, and you refuse, you want to share it, but if you've spoken to your supervisor and they're not willing to let you share this wrongdoing to correct it, if you find a way of leaking that information and you share it publicly, in the interest of the public, you're protected by Gambian law. This is revolutionary, you understand? But I have to say the attitudes haven't changed. You go to many public offices, you know, there is that fear, there is that lack of awareness. Sometimes it's just, I think it's bad attitude from ordinary Gambians, unfortunately. The change that we want to see in public space, or the change that we want to see in the office of the president, the change that we want to see in the office of ministers, we sometimes should be that change, especially, you know, at senior level and senior level. I also challenge the Information Commission to do a lot more awareness raising. You know, when the NHRC came in, they had a lot of challenges in terms of, you know, ensuring human rights, to ensure that its role is relevant, was recognized and accepted by many in our society as fundamental. They still have challenges, but many people have come to recognize that the NHRC is a bastion for hope when it comes to respect for fundamental human rights in this country. Whether you are pro-government or anti-government or pro-opposition, you know, there are issues sometimes when they hit, everybody wants to go to the NHRC. That's the good thing. So that's where we want to see also our ATI commission. We want to see, I know it's tough, it's hard to start a new commission or start a new institution, there are a lot of challenges, but there are a lot of expectations from the Gambian complex. Whether there are people in government or outside government, from the civil society, from media, there are a lot of opportunities for engagement. I know that InfoCheck, you know, the Republic and other fact-checking organizations or organizations that engage in fact-checking and in media and information literacy will be willing to partner with relevant stakeholders. But I think that the attitudes are really, really bad, and there's a lot more that we can do. Hopefully, I had at the beginning of the year, 2025, the Minister of Information, Media and Broadcasting Services said, this is the year of transparency and accountability. So we hope that this kind of pronouncement, but also on, you know, well, it's aligned on everyone is more sensitive. So it's opportunities to come together and really build synergy and raise some needed public awareness on this kind.
Yes, thank you very much.
I think I want to say something about access to information. I think that you know, there is so much information commission can do, but also the problems that we have faced, because we've made a number of requests and deliberately, because I didn't have, I have a lot of friends, I could just go to them and collect information. But the reason why we try to use the access to information commission is because it's important that it's operationalized. So for us, what we think is happening is that because there is internal issues in government and the government doesn't want to be very honest about it. So there is very little the access to information commission. Because, I mean, we wrote, so for example, NAWEC answered to our access to information request for car power contract by summarizing what they think is the content of the contract and send it to us. I mean, we said, but we request for the contract. Why are you summarizing that for us? Or you write an ATI request to some institution and they call you to say, that's the best ones, huh? The best ones, they call you and ask you, why are you requesting for this information? But the point is, the law says, I don't need a reason. I don't need to justify myself. So, I mean, I think it's from the inside of government, I think it's deliberate. The Access to Information Commission is very different from National Human Rights Commission. I think Access to Information Commission is the heart of governance. And from my experience, I don't think the government is serious about that. Yeah, that's my honest conviction. Because if they are, I mean, why would we not empower, why would we not resource Access to Information Commission? Or why would we not comply with Access to Information? I mean, you're right, the ATI Commission lies to these institutions. And, you know, you would have imagined that they would have been quick, because there should have been penalties even for failure to act on this request. But, I mean, and they don't, the thing is, even, I mean, you write to even the Information Commission, Ministry of Information of all places, you would think, would comply. Absolutely. When we wrote seeking for all the contracts for media service contract, they said that those are third-party information. You can imagine, if Ministry of Information is telling you a contract with some media company is third-party information.
And then that was what
that's the worst it can get. So this is the problem, and I think that I can't blame the Commission, because I've interacted with the Commission of the Commission. I think this problem, we have to bring it to the doorstep of Dr. Ismail Assisi, and he should have been here to talk about it.
So I will take maybe 2-3 questions or comments for the sake of time, and then we'll conclude with that.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. Since you talked about access to information and the Information Commission, Deborah is right. One of the critical things that the Information Commission should have embarked upon is awareness creation. That is really, really important. But of course, to embark on a very significant and successful awareness campaign with funding. So we are hoping that in we're making a promise too, that in 2026, it would be different, because we think that funding would be available. And we are definitely ready to go all the way out. But coming back to the issue of requests, Mustafa K. Dabo and Madi Jobate, they have sent in quite a number of requests for information, and they have sent in complaints having been denied the information. In total, we have received about 16 complaints, and the majority of those came from Mustafa K. Dabo and Madi Jobate. Now, what we discovered is, when we went out to meet, not only did we write to these institutions concerned, when we went out to meet with them, they didn't even know that they should respond within 21 days. So again, awareness is important. But secondly, a government has passed this law. I think it is incumbent on the institutions to try to understand the law, to read the law itself. So what we have been doing, behind the scenes outreach programs, when we realized that they didn't even know that within 21 days they should reply. And they didn't even know that this is a right, unless and until it's among the exempted list of information that you can give that has to do with, of course, state security, commercial interest, third party that they had mentioned. You should. And even if those things are exempted, or the request that came, you should respond within 21 days. If you need further time, you should request for another 2 weeks, but you must respond to the requester. So those are basics that we found out that we don't know about that. So awareness is key in this whole thing. But I think also cooperation is very, very important. As Mustafa K. Dabo said, we have to work together. This is a law that the government itself brought into being. And it is applauded, it is recognized as a bold step, it is seen as a political will. So for that to really be a reality, we have to work together. And what we try to also explain is there is so much advantage in giving out correct information, because it protects you from disinformation and misinformation, which of course no government wants that. So there is a lot of advantage in giving out information, and then you bring the public closer to yourself. So it boils down to we need to do a lot of work in awareness creation, in working together, in allaying the fears of, because you have to understand, Mr. Denver keeps talking about Jammeh era. Jammeh era was difficult, but you must know that this culture of secrecy and silence has been since the colonial era. Even during the colonial era, you don't easily give out information. It's just for a very few privileged. Then you came into the Jawara regime as well. Information was not flowing like that. So now we're in a different dispensation. And this is where we should all work together to definitely make this access to information a reality. That's why in my statement I said, it is there, but it is not easy as we think it is. It's all hands on deck. The information holder, the requesters, of course, the stakeholders, citizens, journalists, info checkers, civil society, government players, we should all be in this together. But we hope that as we continue to work together, coming up in the 2026 year, it will be different, where we would do a lot of, because the awareness creation is so important, because at the end of the day, everybody knows what he or she needs to do, be it the citizen, the requester, or the information holder. It makes it easy. And to allay the fears of the information holders. I just wanted to add to that. But thank you for highlighting that as well.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Yes. Regarding your statement about being biased, like for us in the media, like we are used to that. I will give you an example. When Abubakar Jawara, Global CEO, was taking Saban into court, at one point, Abubakar Jawara accused me of being biased towards Saban and even reported me to the Media Council. At one point, Saban also accuses me of being biased towards Abubakar Jawara. So you see, like our reports, we are not doing this work to, please anybody. Last week, I wrote 2 fact-check stories. Nyaur Komba said, since 2017, Barrow government only prosecuted 2 people for corruption. As someone who is always at the High Court, I found this information so, terrible, because we have seen, I covered corruption cases that involve government officials. And when I fact check, I get back to him, I said, I'm fact checking you on this. He said, why would you fact check me? And then the fact check story was published last week. UDP people are on my messenger saying that Talib bought me and paid me. That's why I'm fact checking. I fact check typical Badibunga, who said, the 33 million KMC grant is taxpayers' money. I fact check that claim. And UDP people still on my messenger saying that, Talib paid me. That's why I fact check. You see, so like being accused, accusing us of being biased, like it's something that we as journalists, we are used to it. We are used to it, it's nothing new, especially when you are doing something that is right. So like fact checking is very important. And then I don't think there is anything bias about it, like saying we fact check this particular political party members, we don't fact check this particular political party. There's something we are taught. They said the claim must be specific. When the claim is not specific, you cannot fact check it. It must be specific. So if another person from NPB, made a claim and the claim is not specific, you cannot fact check that particular person. But someone from UDP made a claim and it is specific, you can fact check that particular person. So that's my contribution. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yes,
Oh, okay. Thank you. Yeah. First to congratulate InfoCheck. For this launching. I think they've been doing wonderful work as Fact Check Center to get to this point, especially with the strategy plan. I guess this is their first. Only shows their determination and the direction they want to take. I browsed through and I think they're on the right track. I consider fact checkers as the sanitizers of our socio-political landscape.
So the more fact checkers we have, better. I was thinking Omar or the consultant will be there, so we ask them also questions. So, because it's been said fact checking can be biased, but can it be wrong? And I know Demba talked about fact checking the fact checkers. So that in the instance of that, what would fact checkers do when they discover that they are wrong? And implications of that. And also probably one can speak to the issue of collaboration. InfoCheck, what is their collaboration? I'm not sure I've seen too much of partnership in the strategic plan. But to my question to the panel, not sharing, is a problem, especially information. So that until now, a lot of requests, they don't respond. But even before we request, the law requires proactive disclosure, which they don't do. So the conversation has been focused on the fact checkers and the media. I'm glad in the strategic plan they talked about media information literacy, the people. So my question is about the people. Every day I go home, early in the morning, my mom is on her WhatsApp, listening to all sorts of stuff. And I remember one day I came, that nobody should take bath because some audio was going around. So people like that, and given particularly the notorious, attitude of our public officials, over the past 72 hours alone, I've noticed public statements by ministers and other agents about public spending, about audit findings, about the diplomatic passport. So they make claims, all right? As Mustafa said, you ask for something, they wouldn't give you, but they'll come to explain. So they make claims. How would fact-checking centers or fact-checkers help people, to verify these claims that public officials make? But also all the stuff that goes around, as you have highlighted in the social media, they put it. So I know this is something that InfoCheck probably would do in terms of its capacity building, but from the fact checkers sitting here, what would they say in terms of how do we empower, or how do people verify claims, especially claims coming from official sources on issues? Because a lot of the time that is what is happening. They can appear in any radio station and any program and make claims, and that is it. Thank you.
I think that goes to the panelists.
I think that checking the kind of verifying WhatsApp contents generally is very, very. I mean, I remember when we were doing fact checking as part of the election, so we assembled at one place, and during the election process, it's insane. Like tons of WhatsApp, because Gambia's election is done on WhatsApp. So it's like that's where the all the misinformation is happening. So there are all sort of areas are coming. Some are coming from Marabou saying this is what is going to happen. Some are coming from political party centers that this is what Barrow is doing. This is how much good. So it's a lot. I mean, I think that the only thing you could do with an information like that is to tell them that if you don't know the source and you cannot establish the authenticity of the source, discard that information. Because a lot of those informations are not life and death issues. So it's not like they are warning you about hurricane that's coming to happen. They are just basic information that harm you in a way. So if you cannot verify the information, discard it. I mean, in a lot of those cases, in fact, you cannot verify the source, because if you check the WhatsApp audio, it will say it forward many times. And so this has gone through all this. So in election time, though, there are even though of course we don't do that on time, but usually within the 3 days of the election, the day before the election day, and the day after. So there will be a session which will be 24 hours, and every WhatsApp groups, major political party, social media platforms, they have. So we will be watching and listening to radio and things like that, and be fact checking as they come, and be sharing those fact checks in audio form, in flyers, in other things on different WhatsApp groups. But this, for it to be effective, it needs to be for the whole election year. So for example, in 2020, in 2021 there was a lot of disinformation. I mean, there were Twitter accounts, there were WhatsApp groups, there were Facebook pages that were peddling a lot of stuff, including the death of Hussein Dar. One time was that Hussein had passed away, and it was so crazy, and this goes to the heart of also election integrity, because I mean, like I said, the whole thing blab about the U.S. Russia election rigging was not necessarily physically stopping the ballot. It was disinformation, misinformation, a lot of things. And we've seen it in the Sahel, where we are dealing with the rise of the military and the Russian involvement. I mean, trying to help them on image branding, a lot of things. And so I think that if we are going to have a very credible elections, we will have to have fact-checking and investigative journalism very central to this election cycle. Because unless the people who are going to the ballot are adequately informed and with credible information, they are misled to vote for X or Y. I mean, if someone goes and tells them I have built more roads than Jame and Barrow combined, Jawara combined, they're going to need to know whether that is true. And you know, if maybe Hussein comes and make a claim that Barrow hasn't done this, the people are going to need to know so that they can vote and they can make a determination as to who they vote for based on fact and not just based on some misleading information. So I think that's the challenge going forward. How do you synchronize all the people who are involved in investigative journalism and fact checking? Just yesterday I was having a conversation with someone to say, I think going forward, particularly 2026, all the investigative journalism organizations, all the fact checkers need to synchronize their activities, because this is going to be a very contentious elections, more contentious than 2021. A lot is at stake, and in terms of also the government's part on access to information, this is just a new. I think I've dealt with the other one. The government's involvement in access to information. For me, I do not think that, knowing what I think I know, I do not think that the government don't know. I think that they don't want to give information. That's what my concern has been. So, for example, something as simple as appoint an information officer. You don't appoint anyone. So we write to IEC, for example, and say, we don't have an information. I addressed the letter to the information officer. So they called me back and said, take this letter back and address it to the chairman. I said, no, but the law says you should have appointed an information. It's the chairman, the information officer. Said, well, we don't know that. Just take this back and address it to the chairman. And so you write it to, we write to Ministry of Energy and Mines, and they call us back and say, address this letter to the permanent secretary. I said, but we address it to the information officer. So the permanent secretary and whoever is in the ministry must have appointed and go and say, no, take this back, appoint it to the permanent. So I mean, you go through that. I mean, so it seems to be the case that, and for us, our information, because like I said, there were two reasons why we did it. One is to test our information commission, because this law needs to be operationalized. And two is to disable the political propaganda aspect of we pass the access to information law. Because this is not a political tool, and government cannot be allowed to use it as a political tool. You either give access to information or you don't. And the people need to know you don't. You see, and that is why we made a lot of requests. We request for car powership contract, we didn't get it. Central Bank, the dollars they are selling, in fact, they said that is client information. And we said, how can you sell my dollar? I am a shareholder of the Central Bank. Do you know that? And you sell my dollar to an individual, a businessman. And you are now telling me, a shareholder, I cannot give you that information because it's client. I said, but if this person does not want me to know that he comes to buy my dollar, you shouldn't sell my dollar to him. I mean, it's that simple, right? So I mean, but you have that kind of. I think the only thing we can do is to go behind the Access to Information Commission and make as many applications as possible to the government and make sure the people know they are not complying. Okay, because they needed to adequately resource the commission and also comply with all the requests that have been been made. In
We
fact,
are making 2 more applications.
exactly, that's good. It's good. I think that's the only solution.
Has the commission responded?
Yes, the commission responded, but the commission can only respond to say that, well, I think the commission was writing to them.
Yes,
And
when you request for the information, of course you know that already because you've gone through that, and you're denied.
Yeah.
You complain to the commission.
Yeah.
When you complain to the commission, we take it up
Yeah.
with them to find out why, and because in the absence of the regulations as well,
Yeah.
and in the absence of this lack of awareness creation,
Yeah.
we are taking another role like mediating
Yeah.
for them to release the information. Now, when the regulations come into action,
Yeah.
we have the power also to bring up punitive measures. So it's step by step. It's slow, but
I think
honestly,
we are looking up to that.
we'll get to that. It is not easy, I must say, I must confess, because as I said, all players must come on board. But if you have resistance, it's not easy. Sometimes you may not to blame, as I said. For me, I don't know. I think there's a lot of fear as well in government institutions because they're not used to just giving out information like that. So maybe they're seeking approval from one layer of authority to the other. That's my thinking. But I think that as we begin this journey together, and awareness creation is done very effectively, like a campaign, not for once we probably have a symposium or a seminar, or maybe one press release is there. I mean, it just has to go consistently to a point where it's a strong campaign, where even if you wake up a child, a school child, a school boy, a school girl, or maybe a retired permanent secretary, they can tell you at their fingertips that A, B, C, and D about access to information. That kind of awareness creation, I think we will get there. And I think when we begin to implement punitive measures, it will also change. Because remember that annually too, we have to make a report, and these things should be highlighted. And the complaints that we received and the denials that have been made, all of this will be made public at some point. So I think we will get there. It is slow, it is not easy, but if we all put our hands together, we will get there.
I hope so, because, so for example, us, because for us, some of us who are being in the field for some time, we've established some contacts. So if you deny the access to info, because we publish the CBG, whatever dollar they are selling, we got it, and we publish part of it.
Yes.
And so they denied us the access to information, we got it through our friends. Now, but the point is, the communities themselves need this access to information more than journalists. Because, for example, you have tons of projects government has started in communities. Some of them have stopped midway, some of them at the beginning stopped, some of them halfway stopped, some of them, I mean, just yesterday, just last week, I got a friend who visited a place in Sierra. And there was a ADB-sponsored project that was supposed to level the rice fields and construct some irrigation systems and all that stuff. There was a contractor they hired, and this contractor did such a bad job, and somewhere around the line, and I said 25% of the work done, the project has been stalled for several years. The community doesn't know what's going on. With an access to information law, they could have made a request and say, we need all the information, the project file, everything, the funding sources, everything of this project. They would have known that this project has elapsed. And they would at least, you know, when they have that understanding, they could do whatever they can do themselves. You know, so I think that we need to do for our own sake. We need to do something about it.
I agree. And again, coming back to this awareness, if the villagers or the community that you're talking about, if they are aware of access to information and how they can ask for information. So we will definitely work on that. We're working on getting some funds and we're hopeful.
Inshallah.
Just to
So that last one, and then we wrap it up.
Yeah, just to respond to yeah, we've included some pieces of partnership. For example, if you look at strategy goal 3, objective 5 specifically talked about, sorry, objective 4 specifically talked about building partnership with other faculty institutions like the Republic and the others, and that should be done by 2027, making sure that they have a memorandum of understanding and others. But also what we did find out when we were doing the strategy is a lot of the misinformation that goes around, like Mustafa said, goes through WhatsApp. But if you look at all the fact-checking institutions, their fact checks are written in English. So, how would my uncle in Saremati Gente be able to know, for example, that this information I listen to WhatsApp, the Republic or Fact Check Center, the Gambia, or Infotech has debunked that information. But what they debunk is written in English. And I listen to the message in audio, of course. So we've tried to make sure that, for example, it's starting to transform the way that fact-check information is also fair by trying to make sure that they also rely as much as possible on WhatsApp, community radios, in broadcasting, TikTok, WhatsApp, Instagram, to make sure that as soon as they fact-check an information, they do a video and audio of it, and also use the same platform that those information are used to spread, to be able to do that. So that has to happen in terms of partnering with both the private sector in the media and also other media institutions to do that. So yeah, just to answer the question, those are some of them.
So thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. But before we wrap it up, I want to recognize the presence of Professor Abdullah Said, who's been, as usual, sitting with a lot of wisdom. And I was hoping that you would raise a hand to say something, and I didn't want to put you on the spot by, making you say something. But nonetheless, we appreciate your presence, and we know, of course, we will be able to tap into your wisdom at any point, and you will be one of those that, indeed, as you've always done, support these meaningful initiatives. Ladies and gentlemen, I think it's, sorry.
I'm sorry to take you back. I'm so sorry. I didn't even recognize Professor Say. And I just want to say, I'm sorry that you were not recognized.
That's okay.
It's good to have you.
Thank you
so much. And just to add to what Mr. Nini said, the local language, we should not forget when we fact check and when we do stuff, because if you look at the population, majority of the population cannot read English or understand English. So that is also a very important point that I think we should consider when you do fact checks, not only in English, but in the local languages as well.
It's a lot more relevant also since we now have voice cloning, the videos that would make somebody appear to say what they didn't say. And some of our parents that are now also addicted to TikTok and WhatsApp are relying on some of that information and holding us the Holy Grail. But again, just to wrap up, I think we all pretty much appreciate the initiative that InfoCheck is embarking on or has been on a journey on and is looking to enhance and improve. And we say congratulations once again. And I think from what we gathered from the keynote speech given by Ms. McDowell, that information really is the oxygen of a democratic society, right? We need to remember, and I told you there was a book that said that information is the gel that holds societies together, shared ideas based on information. And so to conclude, I will tell you there's another book. This time was called The Hammer of the Witches, and I just want to mention it to highlight why information and how it is proliferated is important. This was a book that was published in the medieval times in Europe by two authors who highlighted that there were witches amongst people and they were agents of Satan, blah, blah, blah. And of course, if you do any of the studying in terms of history or political science and the like, you should have come across the witch hunts in Europe and the kind of chaos and human violations that it created. But we also, and that's what happens when there is misinformation, right? But also in terms of disinformation, there was information here that Saddam Hussein had weapons of mass destruction. That also destroyed a country. And so we need to be really aware of the significance of what fact-checking information, what creating, reliable or ensuring reliable information can contribute to as the stability, the progress of a society. And I think, if anything, we should go home with that. And also to mention, like I said, that this is a glorious purpose that Omar Saibo and all the members and contributors even those that are present as well to commemorate this or inaugurate this 2026-2030 strategic plan are part of. And I think we should all go from here with that glorious purpose as well to support this initiative and others like it. And I thank you very much. So I'd just like to now invite Omar Saibo to give the closing remarks, and then we'll be able to have our tea and whatever it comes with.
Right, so that's going to be a quick one. First, I want to say thank you very much to the panelists from ANET, to my brother Mustafa, and then to the boss. Thank you for doing this. That was an interesting panel discussion though, because for me, conversations around information integrity is more significant than ever. Like all the speakers mentioned, but I basically that in a world where information travels faster, like I keep giving an example that if we had recorded Mustafa's panel discussion or them here right now, within 30 seconds, that audio is in buzzing. Because if I say in one family WhatsApp group that have 200, each of those members in that group also are part of a group that is 200, so information travels. But you'll be surprised to know that false information travels faster than accurate information. And that is why we must build community resilience against this information. And thank you once again to Alaji and Siruka for accepting to partner with us and for doing this great job. The strategic plan looks beautiful, inspiring, and simply because we had a consultant, we had a partner, and we had somebody that had to do this work. And I must acknowledge the presence of Professor Sen, somebody I have read about before meeting, and I look up to him greatly to come to knowledge-based production and advocacy. It's good to be here with us, and to the country director of Fantanga, and executive director of Edward Francis Small Center for Rights and Justice, civil society colleagues, and all those who are present. I call on collaboration to not just fact check, but to ensure this information and malinformation is combated, is cooked, and we have a country that's governed through information integrity and media and ethical journalism. Thank you all for coming, and let's have a good photo. We'll have the PS and then the